Hi everyone, welcome to the Deborah Rose Talk Show. Today we are going to be interviewing a phenomenal human being, Dr. Greg Wyman, and we are going to allow the audience to build. So please like, share, tell your friends about us. We'll get started here in just a few minutes. If you have questions for Dr. Wyman, now is the time to be thinking about them and post them to the Facebook page, and we will see them. And hopefully we'll have enough time to answer everyone's questions, Dr. Wyman. So I just wanted to thank you first and foremost for making time out of your very busy schedule. I know that you are going to meet our governor this afternoon.
Yes, we will have the governor at our site to actually talk to the business leaders in town, some business leaders in town. But then we'll also have an opportunity to talk with some kids too, some students from PHS and PCS. We'll have a chance to meet with him for a few minutes and ask some questions and talk to him. So I think that'll be exciting for the kids.
Yeah, so. It's going to be really exciting. And I know there's a lot of people in the audience that have children in the Payson Unified School District. So we are inviting all parents, high school kids, don't be cheating from class. But feel free to join us if you can. If you're on a break, we'd love to have you. So is there anything else that we need to... Okay. So, Dr. Wyman, I want to ask you a couple of personal questions before we dive into the meat of the interview today. And could you please tell me why you were inspired to move to Payson, Arizona, of all the places that you could have come to work, because you've got a PhD, is that true?
EDD.
EDD, okay. And what inspired you to come to Payson?
Well, probably, a couple things. I got into the business of education for really one reason and one reason only, and that was to make a difference in the lives of children. As I've moved up from a teacher and a coach to a principal, assistant superintendent, all that's happened is my classroom's gotten bigger. And so instead of just having a chance to make a difference with kids, I can now have a chance to make a difference with parents and with the community. And that's never changed. And so whatever I do with my career, it was all about continuing that basic goal. And then in my lifetime, I've lived from South America to Canada and a lot of points in between in primarily smaller communities. So I think I understand smaller communities. I've lived in large communities too. And so the idea of being in a smaller community and making a difference, again, because you can make that connection with our town leaders and with the business leaders as well as the parents and the kids. Payson was just right place, right time, a little bit closer to the big city, so you could still, one of my daughters lives down in Phoenix, and so there was a chance to still go back and forth and take care of that. If you get a little further out, then when you have 2 or 3 hour drive, it's a little bit harder, but with an hour and a half drive, it's not that bad. So it was just all of those things coming together at the right time, and opportunity was here when there was a position, so I applied.
Well, that's fantastic. We're very fortunate that serendipity worked in our favor. And I noticed you have a Mickey Mouse on your tie. What's going on with that?
We're just, both my wife and I, my wife Mary, both of our original families are Mickey Mouse or Disney fans, going back to my grandfather lived in Southern California when I was a kid growing up. And so we always went there, and her family was very much the same thing, where her family was very big into it. She has an older brother that was born, I think, a couple days after Disney started, and so he likes to say that he started Disney, and so it's just one of those things where we've always gone. And actually, I have a son, Andy, who works for Disney. Went to the college program. He went to NAU, and they did the college program. And both my son, two of my kids, my son Andy and my daughter Molly, are very much in the fine arts. My youngest Annie is a nanny down in the valley, but they've always just been in love with Disney, and so we've made that part of who we are and what we do.
So NAU actually has a college for Disney?
No, what they do is a lot of the colleges around the country, Disney has a college, and so they will recruit kids from around the country to do an internship, either their junior or senior year, with Disney or Disney World, and they will learn all aspects of what it takes to be working for Disney. And then when they get done, a lot of kids will just go back, finish up college because they just want the experience, but they don't want to go in that career. But some kids, like my son, has always wanted to work for Disney, so he got hired on by Disney after that. and is just enjoying it.
What a great life.
Yeah,
Talk
yeah.
about loving what you do
Yep.
for a living. Jeez, I didn't know there was a college at Disney. Did you? Oh my gosh. Well, tell me, what are some of your greatest projects that you're working on that give you the best satisfaction with the Payson Unified School District? Can you speak to any type of mentoring, since that word just came up, mentoring program for our kids here?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, what I like about Payson, and I'm an unabashed supporter of public education. I got the best job in the world because like all educators, we get to work with kids, and kids do phenomenal things. And I don't think sometimes we always see those phenomenal things. And so with some of our internship programs, what that allows is for us to get our kids out into the community so the community can see just what they're doing. And we have 2 or 3 different programs. Linda Gibson and Katie Tenney up at Payson Center for Success have a program that they're piloting, and through a generous donation from Muggian Health Alliance, to go ahead and work with kids on all aspects of the job market. And a significant portion of it is internships and getting kids out into the community, working into different businesses based on area of expertise. But we had a couple kids that went out with Game and Fish just the other day. Kids that were a little reluctant maybe initially, but boy, they just had a wonderful experience understanding what Game and Fish is all about. So in some cases, it's letting kids see about a particular profession. In other cases, those that have more of a desire to be in a particular area, they're working in that area. We also at Payson High School, Ginger Liddell and others in the CTE program, Career and Technical Education, are also getting out in the community. So we have our FFA program has kids working with a local veterinarian. I know Ginger's got kids that are going into a number of different businesses around town. Hers is a little bit different than what they're doing at PCS, and it's a little bit more of rotating through different businesses over the course of a year, again, to expose kids to what's out there, but at the same time also let our business people understand just how good of a quality of student we have that will come out and work for them here in the near future. And in many cases, quite frankly, many of our kids are already in entry-level jobs, and so you see them all the time around town. And then we do have a mentoring program where we have business people in town that come and we started last year. It's very small, to work with juniors. We're going to try and have the mentor work with kids for 2 years, kind of talk to them about college or post-secondary. You know, if they're going to do college, talk about filling out financial aid forms, and just a different voice in addition to their parents. We hope to expand it this year because we have a program called Gear Up that targets kids that traditionally are first generation going to college. It's a program through Eastern Arizona College, and we will look to get all those kids in the mentoring program this year. It's a program that follows kids from 7th to 12th grade, and the program we're working with right now is kids that are in their 11th grade. They had it before I got here, and Christy Ford was running it. It ran its 6 years, and then they had to reapply to get it again because it's a federal program. But we hope to get all those kids in just so they can talk with our people around town, just so that they can help them with understanding what post-secondary is all about. So it's just ways to really meld the community with our kids, because our kids are the most fabulous kids on the face of the earth. They're just outstanding, and so it's just a way for people to see that.
That's really remarkable. How do people volunteer? How do you get the people to volunteer to help these children?
We went out. We had a group we work with Aspire, a lot of individuals in the Aspire group and Aspire is giving scholarships for kids to take what's called dual enrollment. So a student can be taking a college course at the same time as a high school course. So the kids at the high school will take English 101 as an example, and they'll get both college credit and high school credit. And it's a way for our parents to not have to pay so much if their child wants to go to college, because these are transferable credits to most colleges in the country. And Aspire has stepped up and has agreed to pay for the $250 for a 3-credit course. And then from that, many of those people involved in that or with MHA have gone ahead and said, let's get these mentoring. So we kind of put it out to their networks, but if anybody's interested in working as a mentor, The ability to, Jackie Wallace at the high school would be a starting point, or Jeff Simon as the principal at the high school and Linda Gibson, the principal at PCS, would be two that they could just drop them a line, call them, and we'll go ahead and get it set up. We're still getting our feet on the ground for the second year, but that'd be another way that they could get connected.
That's fantastic. So Jackie Wallace, if you have any questions for Dr. Wyman, please, now's a good time to start asking. In the interim, we'll keep talking about some of your other projects, things that are on your heart. But before we do, there was a conversation about Google and your relationship with Google and how rare that is. Would you expound on that?
Yes, just within the last couple months, we were given the designation of a Google for Education Reference District. That's an award that Google nominates districts for, asked us to go ahead and put in an application. There's only 3 of them in the state of Arizona, and there's only 234 across the entire world. And that award came from us because a couple of years back we moved over to a Google platform instead of Microsoft Outlook. And we did it for a variety of reasons, both educationally and, quite frankly, financial. The Google education platform is free to schools around the country, and so that was a way to save some money. When I say Google platform, I'm talking just like with Microsoft. You have an Outlook, or in this case Gmail. You have Word documents, you have spreadsheets, you have PowerPoint. So you have all of those kind of things. Use that platform instead of the Microsoft platform. And at the same time, we move to it for the educational benefit, which is the collaboration that kids and teachers can do in the classroom using the Google platform is much stronger than other platforms that are out there. So as an example, you could have all the kids in the classroom adding information to a document as the teacher's teaching, and unlike in some environments where you tend to, when I put my comment, then you put your comment, you overwrote my comment, and so my comment disappears. This one, yours gets layered on top and on top, so all the kids' comments go into the document, and you can go ahead and see the thought process that kids are doing. Or if you have a group project and the 3 of us were to write a paper, boom, we wouldn't even have to be in the same classroom at the same time. We could all be at home at night sharing our thoughts, ideas, and those kinds of things have just made it tremendously beneficial for our kids. And so we're seeing more and more our teachers are using that. We're connecting with schools outside of Payson, so our kids connect with kids elsewhere. Vicki Andrews, who's our IT director, came from Chicago Public Schools, done an outstanding job for us. And we had a project with PCS kids that was working with Fish and Game and the U.S. Forest Service about the Rio Salado peoples and down at Lake Roosevelt. And then after the kids learned about all that, they went into the 4th grade kids or 5th grade kids at JRE, and because they talked a little bit about that part of the state and were able to present to the kids. So it's just a very exciting and dynamic way to share information about what's going on out there in a very collaborative fashion, which is what you're going to need in the real world, in the workplace. And so the more collaboration anymore, I used to say, the biggest thing that's changed over history is time and distance. Yes. I can communicate with anybody in the world instantaneously right now, and that's not the way it used to be when you had to go ahead and have a runner take a message across 1,000 miles to give to somebody. It's going to take you 3 months to get there. So that shrinking of time and distance makes our kids be able to go real-time teaching right away. My wife actually teaches for a company that teaches Chinese kids English, and she does single lessons with kids every single morning for about a half hour over a 2-3 hour period, but it's instantaneous with kids from China. So that kind of stuff is what Google allows us to do, and we're excited about, because our kids are reaching out to the rest of the world. So is it just the Google Documents that you're talking about, or is it the Google platform for video where you're teaching via video? It's everything. It's video, it's chats, Hangouts. When you look at those real-time discussions, it's the entire suite. Now, like with everything new, some people have embraced it quicker than others. Some teachers have more skill over here than others. Some kids have more skill. So it is a learning process, but we continue to grow it every single day. And we're doing an hour of code coming up in December, which coding is a tremendous field out there for kids, high-paying jobs that a lot of people don't understand and know about. And that's an offshoot of Google, but it's still about that technology. I think Vicki likes to say more than anything else, if we can't take the kids to the world, we'll bring the world to the kids. And that's what this has allowed us to do. So it's phenomenal.
Yeah, I remember years and years ago reading a book by a young man called Accelerated Distance Learning. And does the public school system here, and you as their leader, do you have any vision for doing taking online schooling to certain children that may or may not be able to attend either through some kind of disability, or maybe they're more remote and don't have access to the school system?
We already do. What we have, there's some limitations in the state of Arizona, but when we look at it, we have a traditional setting. We'll just stay at high school right now. This could apply down to all the other grade levels, but right now you have your traditional Payson High School, which meets the needs of the majority of kids. But we also have up at PCS, we have what's called blended learning. And so in that case, kids are doing online learning, but we have teachers in there that are subject matter experts that help the kids in a blended model. So there's some one-on-one, but there's also some lessons. Then we also have what's called Payson Center for Success Online, which is the true online. One thing we do different, the kids do it online. We ask that the kids come in once a week. Just so one of the problems with online education in America is kids do not finish it. And so we ask kids to come in once a week to meet with us so that we can make sure they're on target to do the work and finish the work. And in that case, obviously, if we had a kid that was homebound or something, we would make arrangements. But so we have all three of those platforms. They're online, actually, because the way it was approved long before I got here is a 7th through 12th. So we do have some middle school kids that do it too. We made sure that the curriculum we use there is such that it meets the NCAA standards, so that if a kid were to go online and get a scholarship at a Division I, they would be able to go to that Division I. So we picked a curriculum that made sure that we met the needs of our kids who might need that option. We have a young man, I think, who does some racing and so is out of school a lot. So it's a combination of PCS and online that helps those kids in a non-traditional way. It's not like when we grew up where everybody just goes to the local school. It's much bigger.
That's really exciting. Okay, hitting a topic that may or may not be politically correct. We have an election coming up. We have all these propositions on the ballot. Is there anything that you can say to our audience, parents, local Paysonites, about the propositions?
A lot of people don't know, but school officials like myself, there are laws against us trying to influence the outcome of an election. And so we have to be very careful in terms of taking stands. I know some people say, well, I see stuff you write in the paper all the time. Well, generally that stuff is when a legislature is in session, so there's not an election in place. What I would say, number one, what we would encourage for everyone is to please get out and vote. It's critical that everybody gets their voice heard. And please to make sure you take a look at the information that's out there. We know there's competing entities, and so sometimes there's misinformation put out there. I think with some of the propositions out there, there's some ads out there that talk about cost and what it might mean to school districts in a negative sense. I think the reality, though, is we don't know until we see if it passes, then how it plays out. But I will say in general, I'll just keep it very high level, if there's not enough revenues into the state from whatever the source, so if money's not coming in, then those, whether it's cities and towns or school districts or public entities that rely on that money, if there's less money, then there's going to be less money for us. To give you perspective, it's not all about money, but it is. In the state of Arizona, we're working off 2008 funding levels for school districts. And if you were to look at a place like New York, If our budget is 24 million, New York and New Jersey, the budget for a same-size school district is probably in the neighborhood of 75 or 80 million. And so that is the swing that you get in this country between those that are at the bottom of the pile and those that are at the top. And so there are obviously things that can or can't be done if there's no money. If there's no money, then you have to make cuts, even if they're hard.
Well, I enjoy buying the Longhorn cards.
Yep.
I know that our sports teams, the arts, music, and sports get cut first. And these poor kids are, they come to my office a lot, and I gladly give them checks, and I buy a lot of cards to give to clients. So I'm a huge proponent of supporting the sports and arts with children. Talk to us a little bit about the sports teams. Like, how can, are they doing well? Do they need more support? How can the community rally behind them and help them out?
Well, the biggest thing for all extracurricular activities, sports, the fine arts, the legislature has put in place in the state what's called tax credits. And so you can go ahead and donate up to $400, $200, I think it's $250 now as an individual, so $500 as a married couple. And you can designate where it goes to. So if your children were playing a particular sport or involved in a particular extracurricular activity, music, choir, band, you can go ahead and donate the money there. And it has some restrictions, so it's not carte blanche. It has to go to the kids, has to be used for the kids, for the betterment of the kids. And so we have a very generous community. And so we'll end up getting probably between $150,000 and $200,000 in that. But now that's spread out over all of our schools because it can go all the way from kindergarten up to high school. So it's spread out, and we use it at the lower levels for field trips to help with kids to go on field trips. At the higher levels, we use it for the activities to help with paying for different trips or equipment. And so it's very generous. It's a way for people to get a break on their taxes, and then we have a very generous community that's helped us out that way.
That's wonderful. So you send out a mailing to all the local residents of Payson, and can Pine and Strawberry, Star Valley residents, anyone outside of Payson proper, make that contribution? Yes,
we do send it out to everybody, and we're trying to use social media a little bit more. What you do have, Pine, Strawberry, and Tonto Basin can contribute to their own schools. If their kids are in high school and they're coming here, then they could contribute to the high school. Star Valley, they're within our boundaries, so anybody that's in our boundary, actually it doesn't even have to be in your boundary. You could be in the state of Arizona. My parents live in Tucson. If they wanted to, they could donate to Payson, to the kids up here. So grandparents that live in the state can also donate to their grandchildren schools. Really, so it is across the entire state.
That's really good to know. In closing, I think we just have a few short minutes left. 0 minutes?
10 minutes.
Oh, 10 minutes. Oh, good. We have 10 more minutes. Good. Are there any questions out there, Cameron? Anyone? Not yet? Okay. So tell me, what's on your heart? What would you like to say to the public about your job and some of the things that you're most proud of, or your goals? Anything?
Well, I think the piece that we forget about too often, ironically, I don't mean to bash the media, but because of the way the media works at times and the way politicians work, you might think that kids today, I mean, that's the comment that's said all the time. The reality of the situation is, and I don't know that we recognize it, with social media and 7 billion plus people on this planet, I'm sure there's somebody doing something stupid every second of the day. But we go ahead and we throw it up on social media, and we replay it over and over again, and then we start to make stereotypical statements about what kids are like. I chuckle. Some of us in the room are old enough, but if we were to go back and transport ourselves to the time when we were in high school, and if we were in the late 60s and the early 70s, and we were to have a group of older people in that time frame sitting there looking at us, I'm sure they were, they would think that maybe we weren't as good as that they were. It's the older job, the generation of the older job, to question whether the younger generation is going to make it, but the younger generation's always going to make it. There will be some kids that struggle, but for the majority of our kids, they're phenomenal. And so to see what they do, I tease all the time about, in my day, I probably couldn't spell community service if you spotted me 5 letters. But you look and see what kids do with community service alone. You're seeing kids in 4th and 5th and 6th grade running projects to help people in this community. You're seeing high school kids and middle school kids. The middle school kids go down to the food bank and go to pet shelters to help out, and you just see these kids that really are trying to help out other kids, and then well, it's not like it was back in the old days. We got kids that are taking classes in high school that you should take in college in the 50s and 60s. So we got kids with technology that will run circles around us, and so I would just say have hope about our kids, because what I ask you to do when you look at kids in general is, if you have children, look at your own children. And if your children and their friends are pretty good, why wouldn't the rest of the children and friends be pretty good? Yeah. And they are. Do they face challenges? Sure, no different than we did. But I'm lucky enough, I've spent 30 plus years in this career, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. The ability, and I've been in multiple communities in my entire life, and I wouldn't hesitate to put my kids in the Payson schools at all, because the kids are getting a phenomenal education, and they are going to some of the best colleges. They're going into the armed services and being incredible. We got people that are getting Grammy Awards from that live in this town. We have people that are winning Olympic medals, but we also have people that are the mayor of Star Valley, came from locally, and we have people that are making a difference in this town, and that's what's going to happen, and it's always going to happen. And let's not always buy into this portrayal. Think about what's it look like for your own kids, and that's the cool part that I get to do every single day is just see just phenomenal kids and phenomenal teachers doing great things every single day. Makes my job well worth it.
Yeah, that's very well spoken, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's so easy to pigeonhole people, and it's kind of like this generic label that we put on children. But we did a study, we did a class. I'm in charge of the Payson Women's Leadership Group, and we did a study on the generations, going back to World War II through the 80s, and the millennials, and now we're in Generation Z. And what they found, and these are professionals doing these studies with Generation Z, and we're talking kids like our early teens to 20, somewhere right in there. There's not that big of a gap yet because they're so young, that they're actually reverting back to very conservative, old-fashioned ways. And we discovered that the reason, they discovered, not we, they discovered the reason is because a lot of these children have a lot of grandparents who have raised them or have spent a high amount of time with these kids. And they are really different. They're more frugal with money. They are going back to more traditional means of living, and it's pretty fascinating. And I agree. We should never label people, especially our kids. So
I've got a question from Sandy. What % of students graduate, and how many go to college?
Our numbers will vary from in terms of graduation. In total, when you put both PCS and the high school together, we're probably in the 80 to 90 range. And I say 80 to 90. I think our trend over time is right about 85, but a couple years ago it was 90. When it comes to college, the data that we saw when we talked with the Aspire group is it's a little bit lower. The national average is about 33%, and I think we're in the mid-20s to higher 20s. Again, we're small enough that a particular class that might have more kids that will go on to college than another class, so it varies from class to class. But when we look at it over time, we're in what would be close to what the national average would be. And a lot of that is not just go to college, but finish college, because you see a lot of places where a lot of kids go, but if you don't finish, so what's, is that really as beneficial? But it is something, it's more and more difficult with college, though, to be honest, because there are lots of things out there in terms of professions where you don't necessarily need the degree, or you can get by with a 2-year degree, and therefore it's not, I would say, like the old days in terms of what I need to do to be successful and how I need to be successful. And so that's an important thing to keep in mind. But we would be in the 80 to 90, 85 to 90, depending on the year, and then just short of or right around the national average for the completion of college.
that's a really good question. That leads to vocational school. When I was growing up in a real small farming community in Michigan, we had vocational school, and I loved it. And about, I would say, a third of the students in our high school went to vocational school. The college here, the local community college, has created a welding program that I hear has been very successful. Are there any plans in the foreseeable future for Payson to create a vocational school?
We actually have one. What you have in this state is called Career and Technical Education Districts. So ours is called NABIT, and it's a combination of ourselves with primarily the school districts that are up in the White Mountains and along I-40. At the college, we offer cosmetology and nursing, and so our kids can go over to the college and take those classes at the college, and it's part of the NABIT program. It's affiliated, and then we have 6-7 programs. We have FFA, DECA, which is marketing. We have computers. We have autos. We have wood. We have culinary, and I'm afraid I'm missing one. I hope not. I apologize to the teacher if I'm missing one. But so we have those programs right now where kids are taking those classes, and anymore in the state of Arizona, if you have a career program, you can only have those programs that lead to a degree. Now, it doesn't mean a kid's going to get a degree, but between that and our dual enrollment program, we had two students last year that got their associate's degree from Gila Community College, and a week later their diploma from Payson. One of them happened to be in a traditional academic setting, and the other was actually in the career and vocational, I think it was fire science. And so kids have that opportunity nowadays where they can take both the career path or the academic path, and they will walk out, if they do it right, with their associate's degree complete at the same time that their high school
That
degrees.
is so exciting.
Yeah, it really
Gosh,
is. It really
we
is.
should-
And we have 100 kids in the dual enrollment program. We have about 100 kids that are taking multiple classes, juniors and seniors for the most part, at both of our high schools. And so we have kids at the lower grades that are taking. Nicole Ward's done a fabulous job at the middle school with 7th and 8th graders that take Algebra 1 or Geometry, which would be a high school course. And in her case, in the last 3 years, she's been able to get somewhere between 95 and 100% of the kids pass the Arizona Merit Test, the state testing, while they're in middle school. So again, ways to accelerate kids that are in lower grades and higher grades, and we try to do it all the way through the system.
Fantastic. Go ahead.
Talk a little bit about the great staff we have.
Yeah, talk to us about your wonderful staff. It sounds like you've got incredible people there.
And I think that's the most important part when you look at it. Kids flourish because of adults. We have a program called Capturing Kids' Hearts, and it's all about relationship building. That's the cornerstone of what it's about, and that's what our staff does an amazing job with, is that they make connections with kids. They're the ones that are the individuals that put the spark of learning in a child's eyes. Every year we recognize what's called legendary teachers. It doesn't mean they're the best teacher. It's the concept that all of us have had a teacher in our life that just made such a profound difference. Yes. And that's what we have, and that's what the profession's about. And you can go all the way from kindergarten all the way up to high school and just talk about outstanding teachers that dedicate time and time and time to make a difference in a child's life. We couldn't be where we're at without the staff we have, whether it's administration, our classified staff, or our teachers. They're just outstanding people.
Wow. I can feel your passion. I hope
thank
everyone
you.
out there can feel it too. This man loves his job and loves children, and I guess we're going to be wrapping it up here very quickly. I just think that just by being in your presence, I've learned so much, and I hope that you can be exposed to more and more of our community. Do you have one last word about community partners that you're working with?
We work with lots and lots of partners. We're so appreciative of Aspire, MHA, MSA. We did a snack bar right now that was all from donations, brand new snack bar at the high school football field that was all from donations from community members, from the different business people. We did new playground equipment up at JRE. Again, donations. The Tono Apache Tribe has given us a ton of money for a variety of different projects, and so we are so appreciative of the people in this town, the businesses and what they do. Working together, it truly takes a village to raise a child, and working together we can make a difference. So we are very, very appreciative of everybody in town and how they help us out.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's a perfect place to end. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Cameron Davis, Razor Thin Media, behind the camera, who created this whole vision. And I just want to thank everyone for joining us. Have a great day.